It is now my honor to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. She's a daughter, sister, organizer, policy advocate, renter, and working class immigrant. Senator Zaynab Mohamed believes that we can come together to create systems that make our lives easier, not harder. After immigrating from Somalia, her family built a life for themselves on the south side of Minneapolis. Growing up in a working class immigrant family, her mother took on 16-hour shifts as a factory worker, and her father worked 2 to 3 jobs to support their family. She helped family access healthcare, social services, immigration support, and the public school system. While attending the University of Minnesota, Senator Mohamed helped raise her sister and care for her grandfather until they were able to access publicly funded elder care. Like many other first-generation immigrants in our community, she has a firsthand experience of navigating the government systems that impact our lives. During the Trump administration, discrimination and hate crimes against Black and brown communities reached an all-time high. The hateful rhetoric and government violence against immigrants spurred her into activism, advocacy, and organizing. She started working at an organization called Ayada Leads, which is dedicated to elevating Black immigrant women into political and civic participation. She saw how crucial it is to have our collective identities represented in government. Please welcome up Senator Zaynab Mohamed from Minnesota.
I thought I was a lot taller than that. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It is so wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for having me. And congratulations to the award winners. It was so beautiful to watch your mom's reaction. It's beautiful. She's so proud of you. You know, I was sitting here and I was sort of taking in this moment of when Adam was speaking about CAIR and the 10 years that they've been in this work and how much that work has moved forward. And I think one of the best parts about doing this job is where I come from. I am actually a former CAIR employee in the Minnesota chapter. And so I am a product of CAIR, and often when I go to CAIR chapters across the country, I just feel so at home, even though I don't know you guys. I just feel like I'm a part of a community that is a part of the same mission and fighting for the same things. And so I'm grateful to be here with all of you, and thank you for having me. All of you ladies look so pretty in your hijabs, and I see all the Vela scars, by the way. My name is Zaynab Mohamed. I'm a state senator from the beautiful state of Minnesota, and it is good to be here with all of you. I thank you for welcoming me to your beautiful state and for your hospitality. I am honored to stand before you today, not just as a state senator proudly representing the vibrant and diverse voices of my community in the Minnesota Senate, but also as a partner and a fellow advocate in the struggle of justice. Our gathering tonight during this blessed iftar is a testament to the courage, resilience, and unwavering spirit of our community. The theme tonight, when they asked me to come and speak, I asked them and I said, "What's the theme?" I wanted to know. And it's courage. Courage and leadership could not be more important in this time. In a world where the odds are often stacked against the voices of the marginalized, the disenfranchised, and those yearning for peace and justice, it takes immense courage to stand up and speak out and to lead in these moments. This courage is not new to Muslim Americans, and we know it. It flows through our veins, passed down from generations of resilient ancestors who navigated the complexities of their times with hope and perseverance. My journey is testament to that courage. As a daughter of Somali immigrants, my family's narrative is one of survival and resilience. My parents worked tirelessly in multiple jobs, navigating a new country's challenges, all while instilling in us the values of service, community, and faith. This upbringing, coupled with my firsthand experience that Nicole mentioned of navigating our government systems and advocating for for our most marginalized communities, propelled me into the realm of public service and advocacy. The courage to lead also means the courage to dream and to envision a world where our leadership reflects the history of our communities. A world where a young Somali immigrant woman can stand before you and serve in the Minnesota Senate, not just as the first Muslim American, but as one of the first 3 Black women elected to our Senate and the youngest member. I also hear that CAIR has a lot of Gen Z people, young people. So, to all the young Gen Z in the audience, I see you. It's a dream rooted in the belief that our differences are our strength, and our collective voices can reshape the contours of our democracy. As we find ourselves deeply engaged in advocacy for Palestine, and I see many of you wearing kafiyas, an escalating crisis that has captured the hearts and minds of our communities, we're reminded of the importance of our voices in the halls of government. The situation in Palestine is not just a political issue. It's a moral imperative that calls for courageous leadership and unwavering advocacy for human rights and dignity. It demands that we as a community, no matter where we're at, harness our collective power to push for policies and leadership that reflect our values of justice and of peace. So, how do we make our voices heard in systems that often seem indifferent to the cries of the oppressed? And many of you are already doing that, and I see it. First, it's by recognizing that the power of our vote and our advocacy, every phone call that you make to your legislators, every letter, every rally, and every vote is declaration of our values and our commitment to the principles of just and equitable world. It's about showing up not just during times of crisis, but consistently, relentlessly, and strategically advocating for change. Second, by supporting candidates and leaders who reflect our values and have the courage to stand up for what is right, even when it's not popular. Leaders who are not afraid to say Palestine in the halls of power, who advocate for equitable policies that uplift all marginalized communities, and who understand that our struggles, whether here in Oklahoma, in Minnesota, or halfway across the world, they are interconnected. By building alliances across communities and recognizing that our fight for justice is bound up with struggles of others, when we stand in solidarity with others, we amplify not just their voices, but our voices in their struggle. And, one of the things I learned when I first was elected was I had a colleague of mine who said, Zaynab, I'm gonna give you advice. I've been here for 15 years. You're young, you're Muslim, and this place has, we've never elected a Black woman. So I'm gonna give you a little advice because you have the odds stacked up against you. And my advice is don't ever speak on the floor for your first 2 years. I know, I see the legislators being like, oh, heck nah. And I went to my leadership and we had just won the majority by a single vote. And I said, every single vote here is just as important as mine. I recognize it. And so the first bill I want to do is taking care of our undocumented communities at a time when our federal government is not showing up for them. And so I wanted to carry driver's licenses for all. And that same legislator had come back to me and said, I think you should carry something smaller, something less controversial, something that wouldn't put the spotlight on you. And I don't think he understood that for me, it wasn't about showing up and being the face. It was about uplifting the voices that could not be there for themselves. Those who are so afraid of, being sent back to places that they came from because they were so scared. It was about allowing the people who work in our factories, like my mother does, and allowing them to go home safely and be able to drive. And when I did that, for years, driver's licenses is an issue that's been around in Minnesota for over 15 years. It hasn't been something that was new, but that was the first time in our body that driver's license for all became about 9/11. And so I'm watching legislators who've been there for a long time, like, why are they talking about 9/11? Why are they talking about like Muslims coming and doing crazy stuff? And I'm like, I have no clue, because to be quite honest, there are many people who are undocumented, but personally, I don't know any Muslims who are not. And it's about everybody, right? Like, the issue wasn't about me. And so what I learned quickly is, no matter how often I show up and whether I carry some small bill or big bill, every issue I carry will be controversial, because this place has never seen a young person who's open and honest, who is authentically who they are, and who's not afraid to show up. And so while we break bread tonight, I know many of you guys are fasting. I've been thinking a lot about this session, because I'm fasting during session, or our floor sessions sometimes go really late. And I have to be like, well, I can't take this vote because I got to go break my fast, and I got to go pray because I'm going to go and talk to God for a little bit. And, like, people get comfortable. The more you talk about who you are and your faith, and you stand up for you, even if they don't like it, they tend to get more comfortable, right? And that's what CAIR does. And so the reason why every time CAIR invites me, whether it's CAIR Oklahoma or the National CAIR chapter or California, I show up because as a former CAIR employee, I know that the work that these employees do and how much effort that goes into it, and the target that's on their backs, even though they don't hold an election certificate. And so I want to take a moment and thank them for the work that they have done. Can you guys just put their hands together? Working at CAIR is a labor of love. It's a job that doesn't pay you much, that you get a target on your back, but you do it because when you work here, you understand that this work, this mission is bigger than you and who you are, and that you're fighting for something so important. And there's nothing like working here. And so, to be honest, now that I'm elected, sometimes I think about going back to CAIR because I kind of miss it. And so I want to invite you into the journey of courageous leadership, because that's what these folks are doing at CAIR. A journey where we come together and we create systems that make our lives easier and not harder. And when I thought about running for office, and somebody said, Zaynab, what do you want to run on? And I said, the one thing I noticed over the course of my life is how hard it is to navigate the systems of our government. I watched my grandfather die in my mother's home, struggling to find health care. I watched my mother work 80 hours, like 60 hours a week, and not have health care and work a really hard job. I watched so many young people crave for this idea of a government that is really for the people and that shows up. And when I was growing up, my family was on Section 8 vouchers because obviously we were low income. And when I got in, the one thing I thought about was, the one thing I did a research on was in Minnesota, like how many people are on the waiting list for the Section 8 vouchers? Over 180,000 people. And so I'm like, what can we do about it? And everyone's like, well, nothing. It's a federal program. So just figure out how to build more housing and go and lobby at the federal government. And I could not, and maybe I'm a little insane, but I could not understand what was the point of being elected if we can't do it here, because we understand our federal government can't always show up. And it's so important for people to know that your local legislators, that your local government is the first place that things can actually happen. And in Minnesota, I actually carried a bill to create statewide voucher program. And we did it through raising 25 cents of taxes, because we asked people, would you pay 25 cents of sales tax for your neighbors to have a home who are living outside? And every person we talked to, yeah, I don't mind, because our taxes are meant to take care of those who have the most needy. And so when we did, And now we have about 4,000 people who are on statewide voucher programs. And I've only been elected for a year. You know, and I don't say it because like I am proud of that work, but I'm proud of it because it's organizations like CARE that vision came from. It didn't come from me. It was community or nonprofits that came to me and said, "We can do this here. We don't always have to wait for our federal government to show up. We can take care of our undocumented neighbors. We can take care of our unsheltered neighbors. We can take care of people like your grandfather and actually make sure that we have public option that he can opt into." And you know, young people who are struggling with student debt, your state governments, they can create they can ensure that you can go to college for free, because in Minnesota we did. We allowed anybody who has 80,000 who makes $80,000 and less for their kids to go to college for free. You don't always have to go to college or wait on your federal legislator to do the right thing, and that also came from community organizations. And so I say this because there's so much like work that goes into amplifying elected officials, and this title, mashallah, and this title of like, you've been elected, you have to do it all. It is truly our organizations that talk to people every day, that find out when there's housing discrimination, when there's civil rights issue, when there's criminal justice issue, when in our prisons Muslim women should be allowed to wear hijab and practice their faith even when they're behind bars. That comes from our community organizations like CARE, who fight for the struggles of the people and then come to us and we partner with them and we say, you know more than I do because you work with people at a much more deeper level than we do. And so, as we're breaking bread tonight, I want us to not break bread, not just as an act of faith, but as a commitment to one another, to our community, to our nonprofit organizations who are doing this work, and to the unwavering belief that together, with courage in our mind, in our hearts, and conviction in our minds, that we can and will make a difference. Thank you.